Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about intrapreneurialism, specifically entitled Intrapreneur, How Leaders Ignite Innovation, Break Bureaucracy and Catalyse Change. And thank you very much for joining me today. Something I'm just curious about is how many of you are from Brisbane and how many of you are from elsewhere? So if you're from Brisbane, can you put your hand up, please? Let's just find that little icon that's next to your dashboard. Excellent. Okay, we've got some Brisbaneites with us. Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Brisbaneites. Hands down. Who's from elsewhere? Who's from either regional Queensland or further afield in interstate? Okay, very interesting. Just very quickly, Jan, where are you from?
Toowoomba.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Jan. That's great. Lynn, where are you from?
Oh, sorry, Irena, is that me you're talking to? I'm from Brisbane.
Oh, sorry, you just forgot to put your hand down from before. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. Okay, let's get started. So most of you on the webinar today know me, but some of you don't. So for the benefit of those of you who don't, a quick introduction. That's me, Irena Yashin-Shaw, and I've been doing innovation and creativity for a long time now, many years, since before they became the new workplace imperatives. And in that role, I've had the enormous privilege of being able to work with many really smart and dedicated, forward-thinking leaders who have literally transformed their workplaces in different ways. And many of those stories and their stories are found in my books. And my most recent book is this one here, called Intrapreneur, How Leaders Ignite Innovation, Break Bureaucracy and Catalyse Change, which is also the title of this webinar, because I'm going to be sharing some key concepts with all of you from my book over the next 30 minutes or so. But just first, to make sure that we're all on the same page, let me just clarify this term intrapreneur, because some people aren't familiar with it and some people haven't heard of it. So in essence, an intrapreneur is someone who thinks and acts like an entrepreneur, but while working inside a large organization. In other words, it's the demonstration and the amalgamation of personal leadership skills, business acumen, creative problem solving that results in innovation. And all workplaces have them, and let me tell you, they are worth their weight in gold, these intrapreneurs. And why is that? It's because they somehow find a way of solving, identifying and solving high-value problems that bring in fresh thinking and energy into organizational life. And the interesting thing about intrapreneurs is that they're not necessarily in official leadership positions, even though they might act like leaders because they take responsibility for bringing positive change. So they are really important people. So that that picture on the screen that you see at the moment is people kind of enjoying their working life. And this is very much a characteristic of intrapreneurs. These are the people who bring energy in and shake up the status quo, and they question business as usual practices. And they are really the ones who move organizations forward in times of rapid change by helping them to be more future-focused and future-ready. So these are the people who are the movers and the shakers. There's a lovely quote that goes, the world needs dreamers, the world needs doers, but more than anything, the world needs dreamers who do. And that's what intrapreneurs are. They are dreamers who do. And they take the initiative to find and solve those high-value problems. So when we think about characteristics of intrapreneurs, well, we might think about things like this that you're about to see on your screen. So these are some typical kinds of words that would embody a truly intrapreneurial person. So I'm not going to read them out to you. You can skim read them off the screen, but you can see why every organization needs them in order to stay relevant, and that applies to whether you are part of a public sector or a private sector organisation, whether you're not-for-profit, educational, small business, everything, every kind of organisation needs these sorts of people. And I think that we'll just take that as a given. All right, so my question is, why are you on this webinar? So what is it that has brought you here today? And this is why I want to experiment with my first poll. So I'm just going to pop this out and just see if it works. And there we go. The poll is now open. So could I ask you all to click on the response that seems most you? So why are you here today? Is it because perhaps you identify yourself as an intrapreneur and you want to know a bit more about it? Or could it be that you are a leader within an organisation and you want to create a future-focused, future-ready organisation? Or could it be that perhaps you are responsible for developing your people, you're responsible for developing your workforce, and you have spotted this as being, this hot new trend that is currently taking place globally, and you want to gain skills in this area so you can bring them into your workplace. Maybe you're just curious. Maybe you're part of my social media network and you saw this being advertised and you thought, okay, well, don't know much about intrapreneurialism as yet, but let me just find out because it sounds interesting. And maybe it's none of those at all and I've got no idea why you're here. So, okay, I'm going to close the polls in just a moment. So if you want to just do anything last minute, let me close the poll, and now let's see what came out of that. Okay, so as we can see, we've got 63% of you who identify yourself as an intrapreneur, and you want to know a lot more about it. That's great. Some of you are leaders who need to create a future-focused organisation. Some of you actually have direct responsibility for developing your people and you think this might be the way of the future, and 25% of you are just curious, and that's fine. That's great. Interesting to know. So hopefully we will have something for everyone. Excellent. I just need to now go back to my screen. Okay. All right, so over the next 30 minutes or so, or 20 minutes now that we've got left, I wanted to talk about these three things. What has given rise to this new global trend of intrapreneurialism, and why is it so important, and why is it an idea whose time has come? So why does it trump innovation per se? And the one that I want to spend most of my time on is this last one, about how can your workplace capitalize on your intrapreneurs. So I'll be spending the lion's share of the time on that question. Okay, so let's get started. What has given rise to this wonderful global trend towards intrapreneurialism? And there are three key things, and I would like to call that the perfect storm of conditions for intrapreneurialism. And the first one is the innovation imperative. Now, I think there would be very few organisations today that would actually say they don't want to be innovative or that they don't need innovation. So progressive organisations have recognised the pressing need to innovate in order to successfully negotiate the challenges of this VUCA world in which we live. And the term VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And the somewhat melodramatic catch cry of innovate or die has now become commonly accepted in the business vernacular. And the corporate world is replete with examples of previously successful companies that didn't see the tsunami of change coming their way, and they failed to innovate and adapt and subsequently slid into either irrelevance or bankruptcy or, lack of profitability, and they've just gone out of business. And you can probably think of heaps of them, like Kodak and Blockbuster and Motorola. They're just some of the well-known ones, but there are many, many examples of organizations that have not innovated and have died as a result. In fact, an interesting statistic is that only 71 companies remain today from the original 1955 Fortune 500 company list. And the other interesting factor is that the average lifespan of an organisation has gone from 55 years to about 15. So only those that are constantly innovating are going to survive. And for that, an organisation needs a critical mass of intrapreneurial employees who are constantly looking for ways to create value, whether that comes in the form of improved business processes or new products or services or customer attraction strategies or innovative delivery models, whatever. But without the fuel in the tank of a business, it will eventually start to run down and falter, even if it's had a great run in the past. So that's number one condition, the innovation imperative. The second thing that has given rise to this interesting phenomenon is this notion of employee empowerment. So increasingly these days, leaders want their people to demonstrate initiative and to problem solve independently. And good leaders are prepared to support their people on that journey to independence. So good leaders give them latitude to show initiative and to be able to experiment in safe-to-fail environments, to maybe create minimum viable products or solutions, run pilots that can be scaled up over time. And good leaders assist and facilitate their team members to leverage those talents and their expertise in the service of creating value through innovation for either their team or for the entire organisation. So that's employee empowerment. And the third one is the future of work. Literally, we've all heard the statistics that are predicting that by 2030, about 30 to 40% of current jobs will be lost to technology in various forms. And sure, there will be new jobs there, but the world of work is shifting. More people than ever are choosing to work as freelancers in the gig economy. Some research suggests that nearly 70% of millennials want to be entrepreneurs at some stage in their career. So careers are looking increasingly fluid going forward. So this brings an imperative for people to develop themselves in ways that will keep them in demand. Writer George Crane famously said that there's no future in any job, the future lies in the person who holds the job. So developing entrepreneurial skills and acquiring a track record and a reputation for being entrepreneurial is what will make you highly employable and desirable and valuable in virtually any job market. So that's point number one. Those are some of the global trends. Point number two is, why does entrepreneurialism trump innovation? Well, the word innovation is a buzzword, and people have heard so much of it recently that it's almost starting to lose its currency in some areas. So I was talking to a leader recently who was part of an innovation unit that was tasked with creating a culture of innovation within her organisation. And she said to me that she felt that the word innovation was almost starting to enter eye roll territory, if you know what I mean. So if you can picture that. So what she meant was that people were becoming a bit jaded with the amount of rhetoric surrounding the concept. And it was interesting that when I launched my Creating Intrapreneurs workshop last year, I had an avalanche of enrolments. So I asked participants what it was that had captured their attention about this notion of intrapreneurialism. And we had a really interesting discussion about it. And one participant summed it up beautifully when she said, innovation is a word for the organisation, whereas intrapreneurialism is a word for the individual. And it resonates more because it's engaging and empowering. And I thought, wow, I love that. So I thought that was a beautiful way of summing it up in a nutshell. Intrapreneurialism carries in it the promise of empowerment on an individual level, so it has a personal payoff that is above and beyond the organisational one. So the term intrapreneur evokes a greater sense of individual agency and self-efficacy, and I believe it implies a higher level of volition and reward. So for potential high performers with high levels of creative energy and self-leadership who are seeking autonomy and independent decision-making in order just to get things done and done differently, this is an irresistible concept. So after all, it's because people make innovation happen. So I think this is really the missing piece of the puzzle. Intrapreneurs, they are the people who translate creative thinking and creativity into innovation. So intrapreneurs are the key element. So we really come to this incredibly important question now then, which is why are intrapreneurs the future of your organisation, and how can you nurture them? So that's where I want to spend our time for the rest of this webinar. Okay, how do we nurture your intrapreneurs? And I want to take you through 7 identifiable steps that I'd like you just to consider how you do these 7 steps. So this is talking about how you create an intrapreneurial organisation. So the first step, and can you just think about yes or no in response to this question. The first step is identify your intrapreneurs. Do you do that? So within your organisation, do you have a clear, proven, effective method or process of finding your high potential intrapreneurs who are ready, willing and able and excited about stepping up to the challenge of finding opportunities and solving high value problems for the benefit of the organisation? So question number 1, do you have that in place? Just make a note on a piece of paper, yes or no. So for question number 1. Number 2, give them permission to challenge the status quo. So this means that you have processes and guidelines and sanctioned spaces or opportunities in place to enable people to question established practices without being shut down or without being dismissed. And your entrepreneurs, your intrapreneurs know that thinking differently is valued. It's respected. They know that they can ask difficult questions even if it might make some people uncomfortable. And they know that they are allowed to take calculated risks and be supported without losing face if their actions don't bring the anticipated results. And so you have a forum or a safe space where ideas that challenge the status quo can be heard and aired and welcomed. So write down, do you have that? Yes or no? Number 3, you teach them to think like an enterprising startup. By that, I mean your people have been given the skills to scope and design projects where they can experiment with small-scale pilots before scaling up incrementally. In other words, they know how to start small, be agile, get some quick wins that can be adapted and then scaled up later. So your organisation has guidelines for how intrapreneurs can start their pilot projects or ventures. They know what to do around that. So give yourself a yes or a no in relation to number 3 step. Number 4, you have a process for identifying problems worth solving. In other words, you use either a checklist or some sort of a decision matrix or a framework, a filter of some sort that enables people to analyse the worthiness of a problem or a challenge to pursue so that you can increase your chances of bringing exponential value back to the organisation through that project. So do you have a process for that? Give yourself a yes or a no. Number 5, you have systematized the intrapreneurial journey. What I mean by that is that you've got a documented, clearly articulated process that's in place that your organizations enables employees to use who want to step up to be intrapreneurs. So you are using a process to help them on a step-by-step pathway to being effective, valuable change makers. Have you systematized the intrapreneurial journey? So, yes or no? And question number 6. You can quantify the value that your intrapreneurs create. In other words, you have a method for calculating the return on investment. You use a formula or some sort of a heuristic whereby you can do the math on the actual dollars that intrapreneurial initiatives bring to the organisation. So do you have that in place? Yes or no? And finally, step number 7, you celebrate intrapreneurialism. Your organisation regularly and formally announces and acknowledges the value that your intrapreneurs bring, and by doing so, you celebrate their efforts and their achievements. And there are many ways by which this could happen. It could be at the end of projects, it could be during team meetings, quarterly, annually, ideally all of those, but you have some mechanism by which the good work done by intrapreneurs is foregrounded and presented and discussed among the whole area, branch, or your team, and in that way there's a celebration for the work that they've delivered. So people realise that they're supposed to talk about it and promote it and celebrate it. Do you do that? Yes or no? Okay, so you have now got 7 either yeses or nos, and I'm going to be really curious to find out what your rating was out of 7. So do your maths, do your rating out of 7, and let's just see how that went. So if you got a 0, in other words, I mean, there might be some people who are just starting out on this journey and haven't really got any of this in place, just click on that. If you've got 1 or 2, then click on that. If you've kind of been on this journey for a while and maybe you've got some of these things in place, so maybe you had 3 or 4 yeses, click on that. If you are, just romping it in and you've got, a 5 or 6 yeses, which is pretty impressive, click on that. And look, if you got 7 out of 7, I take my hat off to you. Click on that. Okay, so just go ahead and identify where you sit, and I'll be closing the poll in just a moment, and I shall close it off now, and let me share those results. There we go. Interesting. So there we have it. We have the majority of people saying they've got a couple of yeses, but no one's kind of saying a 5 or 6 or 7, but there's a couple of people who have identified that that's a 0 as well. So anyway, there we have it. You've got an idea of the people who are on this webinar, what their state is and where they're up to. And look, this is an emerging area within organisations, so we're going to be hearing a lot more about this, so it's good to get a bit of a temperature reading right now. So then my next question then is, if you were to identify one step that would really transform and make a major difference, which step would have the greatest organisational impact for you, do you think, out of those 7? So this is kind of a rhetorical question. I haven't got a poll set up for this because I couldn't do all 7 of those. But it's just a kind of a rhetorical question for you to think about. Which would be a step that would really make a big difference to your organisation? Actually, what you could do is just type your message in the bottom there, just out of curiosity. So in the chat pane, which I didn't point out to you before, so you may not be able to find it, but if anyone can find their chat pane, just type in which step you think would have the greatest organisational impact for you if you could introduce or if you could augment. And I don't want to spend too long on this because we're nearly out of time, and I did want to just let you know that I wanted to give you my book. So we'll leave that and we'll keep moving, and I'll just ask you to think about that and let me know down the track what you think would be the greatest impact for your organisation. So if you would like a copy of my book, I'm actually going to give it to you. If you email me within the next 60 minutes, for people only who are on this webinar, I'm going to give you a free copy of my book. So you can let me know if you would like to have it in e-copy, which I can send to you straight away, or if you would prefer a hard copy, then you are very welcome to do that as well. Just let me know. I've got your email address, but in the email, just let me know if you would like a hard copy as well. Happy to send that out to you, but you've got to do it within the next 6 minutes or the next 60 minutes. Now, if you'd also like to book a chat with me to have a talk about all of this, just in the email that you send me, just say yes, please, and yes, please book a call, and my EA Tanya will contact you to arrange that so we can maybe run through together some of the discussion that we've had on the webinar today. We can talk about your results and anything that you would like to discuss with me. So I'm going to say that it has been absolutely fabulous having you all on board. Remember to be in touch in the next 60 minutes if you would like a free copy of my book. And if you would like me to book a call with you, say yes, please book a call and we can have a chat. So that's my email address that you can see on the screen. And the final thing that I'll just let you know is that above and beyond the book that I'm going to send you, I'd like to put a couple of things on your radar. One is that I'm having a dinner next Thursday. For those of you who are in Brisbane, if you would like to join us, we're going to be talking specifically about this issue of how intrapreneurialism is impacting the future of work within organisations. So we've got some HR people coming, so anyone who's a leader within their organisation, just go onto my website in the events section and you can book a place. It's just a very small group and it'll be an intimate conversation and discussion. And I'll also let you know that I've got a Creating Intrapreneurs workshop coming up on the 28th of July, which is a Thursday, and I'll send everyone a link for that as well. So hopefully, if you're interested in this topic, then our paths might cross in person rather than just via webinar. And I look forward to meeting up with a number of you soon. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure to do the webinar with you, and I look forward to connecting with you all soon. Bye for now.